What's your cell phone say? Thanks.
This time.
Hey, John, how are you feeling?
I'll make it.
It's not dealing with wheels all the way through your house and that's gonna be on everybody's sick like that. Oh.
I start coughing on this.
Where's
We're going to ask you to make a 10-minute speech tonight.
And then have it right.
Thank you. Good evening. I will call the Wairika City Council meeting for June 3rd, 2025 to order. And Council Member Middleton, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody here to our meeting tonight. And as just a bit of housekeeping, I would ask that everybody please silence their cell phones. And will the clerk please take roll?
All right. Good evening, Wairika City Council. Drake Davis, are you present?
Present.
James Clare,
here?
Paul McCoy,
Here.
Corey Middleton, and Colleen Baker.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also like to just point out that we have via Zoom, we have a Deputy City Attorney, Thais Alves from CHW on the line, or she's here tonight via Zoom. I already said that, as Mr. Jared is unable to attend the meeting tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So next, we have approval of the agenda. What are the wishes of the council?
Oops, I don't think I was on. I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Middleton, a second by Councilmember Clare to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no presentations tonight, so next up is public comment. Public participation is welcome and invited at all city council meetings. This time is set aside for residents to address the city council on matters listed on the consent agenda, as well as those items not included on the regular agenda. If your comments concern an item noted on the regular agenda, please address the council when that item is open for public comment. The city requests that persons addressing the city council refrain from making personal, slanderous, profane, or disruptive remarks. Please speak into the microphone from the podium. The podium electronically adjusts up and down to accommodate the speaker. Please state your name for the record prior to providing your comments. Please address the council as a whole. If you have documents to present, please provide a minimum of 7 copies as these become a public record. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. The public comment period is not intended to be a question and answer period or conversations with the council or city staff. Do we have any public comment tonight?
Good evening. My name is Jan Osborne. I live in Wairika, and I'm here to discuss or present to you my opinion on the meaning and importance of the word no. N-O. One of the first words we hear when we're children, usually about the time we've learned to walk or crawl, because then we're out exploring our environment and we hear no. Sometimes, at least I don't recall at that age, but later, a smack on the hand. This was done, and parents do this because they're concerned about the health and safety of their children. And I'm concerned not only about my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, but all the children that are growing up right now. And my experience is in Wairika right now, that they're not learning the meaning of the word no. Let me give you a few examples that I thought of. On an airline, no smoking. No fine print that says, too bad if this is an international flight and you have to have a cigarette every hour and a half, you can't smoke. And if you do, you get a fine. You could be put on a no-fly list and you could be arrested. When you're driving, let's say going up to Medford, and I don't remember if there's any places up there like that, but it says, no passing. No fine print that says, unless the car in front of you is going really, really slow and you got to get to Medford for your hair appointment. No, you don't pass. No parking. Again, there are no exceptions. There's no fine print that says, unless it's a really hot day and that spot is the only place that's in the shade. No parking. No means not ever, not any, without exception. I am seeing signs, I've seen them for a long time in Wairika, that say things like, no pets allowed. If you want to see one, go to Minor Street Park or Ringy Park or the Minor Stadium. All the entrances have it. No pets allowed. We're allowing pets. And children are seeing this. So I think it's probably kind of confusing for kids that they see that adults evidently don't have to follow these signs. If you go to Greenhorn Park, it doesn't say no pets allow. It says no dogs off leash. Again, there's no fine print that says, unless you don't have a good place in your neighborhood to play fetch with your dog, then the rule doesn't apply here. No, no dogs off leash. I walk at Greenhorn Park almost every day. I can't say without fail, but too often there are dogs off leash on the trail around the reservoir. The park host has told me he has no authority to enforce the no pets off leash. He can say to people, the pet needs to be on a leash. But what he told me, he says, better for you to call YPD, or at one time I could call animal control, because you will have more influence than I do. I've called numerous times, and there are still pets off leash. There's a sign in Minor Street Park at the skate park, and it's a pretty big sign. It's at both gates. Lots of rules. One of them is no bicycles, no roller skates, no scooters. I was driving by there a week ago, Sunday, and there were 5 boys about ages, well, they look like 5th and 6th graders. And I make this assumption because I've been a teacher. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne.
Okay.
Your
one
time
last
is up.
thing. If you want things to mean no, and you want the kids to learn what no means, enforce the rules.
Louise Gliotto, Wairika. I know that the council can't make a decision tonight and can't answer what I'm going to be talking about, but I have a request to make. I have a request that I can't remember which city council meeting, I think it was before Colleen Baker became mayor, but one of our council members, Middleton, said that one of the things he'd like to see happen in this next administration is to decrease the amount of time for public comment to 3 minutes. And I object to that. And the reason I object to that, you can see tonight that there's very few people here tonight. Probably very few of them will come to the microphone. And I don't believe public comment adds that much to the meeting or makes the meetings go longer. Actually, what makes the meetings go longer is some of our council members who repeat oftentimes what they have to say in their statements. And so they're the ones who make the meetings go longer, not the citizens. Also, I'm requesting that you put on the agenda that you relook at I think you didn't make it a law or an ordinance. I don't know how it was done, but I would request that you would reinstate the Zoom meetings for the citizens. There's a lot of citizens here tonight that maybe would have come. A lot of the citizens that are elderly don't like to drive at night. They're also, maybe they need to make bathroom stops, and there's not public bathrooms easily accessible to the public here. And I think we would have more participation by the public if we could do Zoom meetings. I know that the county allows the Zoom meetings. We probably wouldn't have 25 or 30 people doing Zoom or commenting on Zoom. So I would like to see the council do everything that they can to encourage public participation. The best government is government where the citizens participate. So please consider that, and I would really appreciate it if you consider putting it on the agenda so you can hear from citizens and how they feel about that. Thank you.
Mariatri, we really need to do an urban campground. I spoke to the mayor already about this and sort of was put in my lap. And I found out that I, as a citizen, am not allowed to do that. The city works with other entities to get this done, and the SDL Church, Luther and Bob Martin are willing to work with the city if they would work with them. They have that church the big church has deep pockets, but we need it done. We need these people off the hill, and we need them, but removing them off the hill doesn't remove them out of society, out of existence. That's ridiculous to think that. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're not there. We need an urban campground. So at the entrance of the park, Greenhorn Park, is the tree. They've been there once, but if we graded it and made it into an actual real live urban campground, like Rogue Retreat, you know what that looks like, Miss Mayor, you went. That is what we need. So it either needs to be there or at the county yard, city yard, which is perfect. That row of trees is absolutely perfect. There's water. There's the old radio station could be turned into bathroom. The showers are up at the truck stop, you know, but it needs to be done instead of just having them. Because another thing is when we have a place to put them, we can enforce the rules. If you don't go by these rules, you have to get out of our city. And that's an actual thing. We can do that, but we cannot do that until we have a place to put them. And having citizens do all of this by doing the 501, that doesn't work. That's not legal. And then also we need to work on this so that we can also work on a cooling center for these people because more people die in the summer than they do in winter. And it's going to be a hot summer, way hotter than last year. And no matter what people think of homeless people, they are human beings who do not deserve to die. Thank you. Yep.
Again, find that shock to agree with Louise. If you can't sit here and listen to citizens talk at you for 5 minutes, you might want to find a different way. And same thing with the Zoom. A lot of people, that's the only way they participate. Really need to have that Zoom turned back on. In regards to Dan's problem with the dogs, this is why we need a real life animal control officer. This fiction of every police officer being an animal control officer isn't working. Because the police have far more important things to do than to go chase down a dog. So if you want to keep the dogs under control, keep them licensed, keep them from causing all sorts of problems, this is why you need an animal control officer.
Is there any further public comment? Well, I'd like to thank each of the speakers for coming up and giving us your opinions and requests. So we'll move on with the agenda. Item 6, the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial and will be enacted by one motion unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. Item A, approval, ratification of payments issued from May 11th, 2025 through May 24th, 2025. B, approval of minutes of the regular meeting held on May 20th, 2025. And C, approve the appointment of Keith Cummings to the Wairika Fire Department. What are the wishes of the council?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Council McCoy seconds, Councilman Davis's motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Davis, a second by Councilmember McCoy to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move on to item 8, city business. This is the interim human resources director presenting approval of the compensation resolution for department heads and unrepresented management positions.
Presenting the compensation resolution for department heads and unrepresented. The city has unrepresented management positions that are not represented under a memorandum of understanding for purposes of defining compensation and benefits. The city recently conducted a compensation study using comparable agencies to ensure competitive wages and benefits. Here is a summary of benefits for the compensation resolution of the unrepresented positions. The duration is a 4-year period. Wages are as follows. Effective July 6, 2025, the finance director position will receive a 10% equity increase. So the top step of the salary range would go from $108,434.40 to $136,627.35. Year 25-26. This position would receive a 3% COLA adjustment for the following 3 years. So the top step would be $142,726.18 in fiscal year 26-27, $144,947.99 in fiscal year 27-28, and $149,296.44. Effective July 6, 2025, the Community Development Director and Human Resource Director position will receive an 11% equity increase. So the top step of the salary range would go from $108,434.40 to $120,362. Sorry, $120,362.19 in fiscal year 25-26. These positions would receive a 3% COLA adjustment for the following 3 years. So the top step would be $123,973.06 in fiscal year 26-27, $127,692.26 in fiscal year 27-28, and $131,523.04 in fiscal year 28-29. Effective July 6, 2025, the assistant city manager position would receive a 15% equity increase. So the top step of the salary range would go from $119,548.93 to $137,481.27 in fiscal year 25-26. This position would receive a 3% COLA adjustment for the following 3 years. So the top step would be $141,605.71 in fiscal year 26-27, $145,853.90 in fiscal year 27-28, and $150,229.52 in fiscal year 28-29. Effective July 6, 2025, the Public Works Director position would receive a 3% COLA adjustment each year for the next 4 years. So the top step of the salary range would go from $135,319.58 to $139,379.18 in fiscal year 25-26, $143,560.56 in fiscal year 26-27, $147,867.38 in fiscal year 27-28, and $152,303.41 in fiscal year 28. Effective July 6, 2025, the fire chief position would receive a 3% COLA adjustment each year for the next 4 years. So the top step of the salary range would go from $130,372.65 to $134,283.83 in fiscal year 2026, $138,312.35 in fiscal year 26-27, $142,461.74 in fiscal year 27-28, and $146,735.60 in fiscal year 28-29. The top step for the police lieutenant is benchmarked at 30% above the top step of the sergeant. So effective July 6, 2025, the lieutenant top step of the salary range would go from $122,431.61 to $128,553.21 in fiscal year 25-26, $132,400.81 in fiscal year 26-27, $136,382.11 in fiscal year 27-28, and $140,473.58 in fiscal year 28-29. The top step for chief of police is benchmarked at 15% above the top step of the lieutenant. So effective July 6, 2025, the chief of police top step of the salary range will go from $140,756.35 to $147,836.18 in fiscal year 25-26. $152,271.28 in fiscal year 26-27. $156,839.42 in fiscal year 27-28, and $161,544.66 in fiscal year 28-29. The city's employer medical benefit is equivalent to the cost of 85% of per school. Sworn employees receive longevity pay of up to 10% of base pay based on length of service. Non-sworn employees receive longevity pay up to 5% of base pay based on years of service. There is increased vacation accrual and the addition of Cesar Chavez holiday. The city matches dollar for dollar what the employee contributes into their deferred compensation account to a maximum of $3,000 per year. The estimated fiscal impact for fiscal year 25-26 is approximately $171,000. The recommended action for the city council is to adopt the compensation resolution for department heads and unrepresented management positions.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions for Ms. Sandberg?
I want to commend you. You did a good job with the study that the city did, comparing us to like communities such as Anderson, small communities, not big communities. I appreciated that, and I appreciated trying to endeavor to get our heads of our management, keep them in line with others. We didn't go clear up to the top, but to keep them in line with others so that we are not every 2 or 3 years reaching out to try and find somebody and then spending $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 to train them in the first year or two. So I want to thank you, Melissa, for that.
Are there any other questions from the council? If not, I'll open it up for public comment.
Just a question. I'd like to know what the small cities were in the studies they compared the cities were checked as to whether that was up.
Mr. Elsnab, did you want to answer that question?
Yes, I believe the cities were Mount Shasta, Weed, Anderson, Red Bluff, and I believe in Siskiyou County. Thank you. And those were our comparable agencies, including Red Bluff and Anderson, all I-5 corridor.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? I'll bring it back to the council. We have a request to approve this resolution. Is there any discussion from the council at this point? What are the wishes of the council?
Councilman Middleton, I will make the motion to adopt resolution 2025-19 of the Record City Council of the City of Wairika approving the compensation resolution for department heads and unrepresented management positions.
I second.
I have a motion to approve, to adopt the resolution as presented. Motion made by Councilmember Middleton, seconded by
Okay, all those in favor of adopting resolution 2025-19 of the City Council of the City of Wairika, let me know. Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Claire,
Yes.
and Councilmember Baker.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Item B under city business is discussion possible action on a motion to direct the city manager to enter into a subrecipient agreement between the city of Wairika and Great Northern Services for an application for the 2025 CDBD Subsistence Payment Program. Good evening.
Subsistence payment program, and joining us tonight is Andy from Great Northern Services, the community development manager, for any questions that you may have at the end of my staff report. So the city of Wairika are engaging Great Northern Services to apply for a community development block grant, subsistence payment program to help low and moderate income residents with emergency grant payments during times of financial hardship. A low and moderate income resident is a resident whose household income does not exceed 80% of the county median household income, and the county median household income in 2024 was $55,500, making 80% of that approximately $44,400. So what is the program? This program is for subsistence payments to assist low to moderate income households that are located within the city limits to help cover their rent or mortgage payments or their city utility payments, such as their water bills. The purpose of this program is to provide these emergency grant payments to help prevent a household or a family from losing housing due to non-payment of their rent or their mortgage. These payments can also assist families with other costs, including food and clothing. Great Northern Services would work with our staff to develop the program guidelines and what the assistance could be used for. So how much money are people eligible to get? This would be up to staff and the council. According to my discussions with Brandy, there is no minimum or maximum on the assistance amount. However, Randy does suggest assisting the client with $1,000 to $1,500 in payments. And assistance can be for up to 3 consecutive months. And in terms of when this award would be announced, the CDBG process is a bit slower than some of the other agencies. So it's anticipated that they would be announced June of 2026, which would mean that the program would start sometime between the fall 2026 and January 2027. I have a little blurb here about Great Northern Services in case anyone's unfamiliar, but they're an economic development and community services nonprofit that offer programs such as home energy assistance, weatherization, senior nutrition services, and grant management services. GNS has worked on similar subsistence payments programs like this one that we're presenting before you tonight in the past, including the CDBG CB23 subsistence payment program that was administered during COVID-19, and that program distributed over $1.3 million in payments to vendors on behalf of Siskiyou County residents. The fiscal impact for applying for this grant, GNS estimates that it will take 80 hours to write the grant, and at an estimated $75 per hour, the cost to assist in writing the grant is $6,000. if the grant is awarded, there would be no cost to the city because the cost of grant writing would be considered pre-award cost, so it would be reimbursed under the grant. However, if the grant is not awarded, then the city would pay for Great Northern's grant writing services from the general fund. Once again, the recommendation before you is a motion to direct the city manager to enter into a subrecipient agreement between the city of Wairika and Great Northern Services for an application for the 2025 CDBG subsistence payment program. And with that, I will open it up to questions and invite Brandy up if there's anything I missed.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy, do you have any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Middleton?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Have we used Great Northern before? Sorry.
I think a very, very long time. It's been a long time ago. So you were, all of the jurisdictions within Siskiyou County were part of the COVID money. So the EDC, Siskiyou Economic Development Council, they were the administrators and we did the implementation. So not only did we do this assistance payment program, we also did the food bank program. So we provided fresh protein and produce throughout the county. So you did provide funds through that, but not just the administration. They were the head, they were the lead jurisdiction for that. So we could all pull our funds. But it's been many, many years ago. We probably did housing. Even most likely what we did.
Councilman Davis, where I've seen Great Northern since I have lived here has been through the educational system. I've seen many, many families that have benefited from Great Northern. They've been very active in my 39 years living here in in Siskiyou County since I moved here, and they do a good job. So, so they are active, not necessarily with the city, but they're active with individuals.
Mr. Claire, do you have any questions? So I want to make sure that I understand this correctly, that this is actually a huge benefit to the citizens of Wairika at a very low cost to the city administration, correct?
If it is a, the only cost would be for processing the payments and for administration to submit reports. We generally do all the reporting. We can't actually submit the report. I don't submit reports. The jurisdiction would submit the reports and they have to review it, make sure that they're correct. They work with me on reporting. You are supposed to do, since we're a subrecipient and not a contractor, there should be a monitoring because we're a sub award. You're doing a sub award to us. And that's about it. If the city is concerned that it's taking a bit of time, more time than you would want, we can actually add that into the grant to pay for city staff. So applying for it, if we get the award, it would be no cost to the city except for staff. If it's not awarded, it would be Great Northern's time. So right.
Thank you.
Yes. So the subsistence payment total from the grant would be $240,000. So if we say we provided $1,000 payments, that would be about 240 people that help with this grant. So hopefully that answers your question a bit more. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the council? I'll open it up for public comment at this time. There being no public comment, I'll bring it back to council for discussion. Councilmember McCoy?
I would like to be the first one after discussion is over to make the motion when you end discussion.
Is there any discussion? What are the wishes of the council?
This is Councilman McCoy. I would make the motion to direct the city manager, John Elsnab, to enter into a sub-recipient agreement between the city of Wairika and Great Northern Services for an application for the 2025 Community Develop Block Grant. What's the fourth word? Block. Yeah, also known as for this purpose, CDBG, Subsistence Payment Program.
I second.
I have a motion from Councilmember McCoy, a second from Councilmember Claire to enter into this agreement. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Aye.
All opposed?
I want to say yes. Yes. Just a little late, sorry. Ms. Mayor.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item C is a discussion and possible action on adopting a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Larry Walker Associates for environmental engineering and consulting services to assist the city with developing and implementing the Wairika wastewater pretreatment program in an amount not to exceed $142,253. It looks like the microphone just needs to be plugged in again.
Should we try that again? Madam Mayor, members of council, Cindy Lynch, your municipal projects manager. As the mayor said before you tonight is a request that you adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a PSA with Larry Walker Associates to give us consulting services to assist the city with developing and implementing the Wairika wastewater pretreatment program in the amount not to exceed $142,253. The federal and state pretreatment program gives regulatory authority, the EPA, states, and city governments to control discharge of wastewater by industrial users, which is non-domestic users, into municipal wastewater treatment plants or publicly owned treatment works. Industrial wastewater pretreatment involves removing harmful contaminants before discharging the wastewater into municipal sewer systems. And due to the ever increasing state oversight of water resources and pollutants into waters of the state, the city is being required now to develop and implement its own comprehensive ongoing wastewater pretreatment program that complies with government code. So in February, the city published an RFP looking for a consulting firm that did environmental engineering for this program. We received 2 submissions and reviewed them, and after reviewing, staff's recommending Larry Walker Associates of Davis, California. They have decades of experience with this kind of work. They've assisted Reading with their wastewater pretreatment program development, and the professional service agreement, as it's designed, will work through the entire scope of work from beginning to end of the pretreatment program. That'll help us develop it from the bottom up, help us with the ordinance, help us with regulatory agencies, assist with forms and developing a plan to enforce, and assistance and on-call services after the program establishment is complete, so that we can continue to receive help when we need it. And the fiscal amount of 142,253 for the help comes from wastewater reserves. It's been addressed with the finance director, and it's in the next year's budget. City staff hours obviously would come from regular wastewater just to implement and help with the program. And if you have any questions, I'm here. Otherwise, wait for your decision.
Does the council have any questions? Thank you. I'll open it up for public comment at this time. There being no public comment, I'll bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Is there any discussion?
I have a question before. This Mr. Walker and Associates, are they a specialty organization in wastewater treatment?
They're environmental specialists, and they do all kinds of wastewater and EPA regulatory type, all kinds of. Yes.
So,
to answer that question, yes, their specialty.
so we're just employing him for this particular job.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? What are the wishes of the council?
This is Councilman McCoy. I move that we make a motion to adopt, make sure I'm getting it right. Resolution 2025-20 of the City Council of the City of Wairika, authorizing the city manager, John Elsnab, to execute a professional services agreement with Larry Walker Associates Incorporated, also known as LWA, for environmental engineering and consulting services to assist the city with developing and implementing the Wairika wastewater pretreatment program in an amount not to exceed $142,253. I'll make that motion.
Council Middleton, I will second the motion.
There's been a motion made by Councilmember McCoy, second by
Thank you.
Councilmember Middleton to approve this resolution. What are the wishes of the council? Please signify in favor by saying yes.
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 Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Next on the agenda is item D from our Assistant City Manager. This is the General Plan 2044 update, Land Use Element Zoning Code update, and Design Standards draft discussion. And this is a discussion only at this time.
Correct. There's no action requested of you at this moment besides your input. And you want to come up? So thank you very much. We do have some slides printed if people would like some. Alia is going around doing that. I'm welcoming up Bonique Emerson from Precision Civil Engineering. It's the city's on-call planning services contractor. Bonique's team at PC has been helping quite a bit, actually, frankly, uplifting your zoning code updates that she'll get to, as well as doing your design standards. So she'll be joining me for the presentation on the latter third of this. But this is her first time in Wairika, so we're showing her some really nice hospitality while she's joined us. So thank you all so much for this time. This is a public item for you all to have some open discussion and give some feedback on the general plan, land use and community character element, the zoning code update, and design standards. We did not print out the initial draft of like 207 pages of zoning code update yet. We do have some input that we would like to gather from you from the higher level view before we bring that full document for your consideration. Additionally, the same thing, this land use and community character element and the design standards will come back to you as well. But we want to do it in some more digestible pieces, not just for the council's sake, but also for members of the public to give them ample time to give input, as well as understand the process that we're taking to update these very key items that we have. So what are we doing today? We're going to be introducing the process and the documents that we're working on, those three specifically. We're going to identify some notable changes that we're proposing to make to those three elements, and then highlighting some of those changes. And then we'll be collecting public and city council input. So again, open discussion. We want to go over kind of the format for this item. It's a little bit different from how we do other items. We want to give ample time for input. So we will have this separated into three sections. We'll start with the land use and community character element. We'll then move to zoning code updates, and then the design standards, public input, and initial direction from our community engagement. And per the direction of the mayor, we will have public comment after each one of those three sections, so that we can at least allow people to kind of focus on one topic for each section, and give ample amount of time for people to ask those questions or give any input on that. Speaking of questions, we know that there may be a lot of questions on some very detailed items within the codes or the element or the design standards. And so what we are going to be doing tonight is we will record all of the questions that we have, and we will do a long form question and answer document post meeting so that people have a comprehensive answer to their question. If there is something quick that we can respond to tonight, we will do that after the public comment section closes for that section, or if the council members have a specific comment or question they would like us to answer today, we can do that. There may be questions that we don't have an answer to, which again, we want to give ample amount of time and address those appropriately. And we'll release that question and answer in probably about a week or so after this meeting, once we've been able to catalog everything correctly. So things to note about this as we move forward. This is an initial draft. Just to be really clear, the direction can change and most likely details will change. So as we move through this process, it is not a final thing. We will have more public engagement, which is item number 2. This is just one of a couple different ways that we'll be collecting input on these items. And we will have other items for you to discuss as well. So this is not the end all be all moment for you. We will actually be doing this exact same presentation for the Planning Commission this month as well, to garner their input as well as garner more additional public input. Finally, these are long range documents. So for the general plan, we're talking to a time frame of 2044. And then for the zoning code, typically your zoning codes have about a 5 to 10 year lifespan. And so some of these may be long-term goals and visions for the city, which we'll go over here shortly, and they may or may not represent the current here and now. So if there are certain things that you see that aren't in there that currently exist, that you want to continue into the future, this is definitely a time to discuss that. But please understand that when we go through this, the general plan especially is very aspirational in kind of the tone of that. So with that, we'll go into land use and community character. So we've added community character to this element because there has been a large focus in design that we received from public outreach as well as direction from the council previously. So again, we're developing those design standards, which a portion of those design standards are required by state law. So the state does require that housing complexes that are affordable in nature be evaluated on an objective scale as opposed to a subjective scale. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we move forward. So going back to it, this is our 2044 vision, which the city council approved. So this is just to remind everyone where the context of these amendments are coming from. So yes, we do understand there are certain state mandates that need to be included within these updates. So if you'll remember from the housing element update, there are certain programs we have to continue to do or start to do. Same thing goes for the land use and community character element. But from there, outside of those state mandates, it is ultimately up to the direction of the council of what you would like to see for the city in the future. And so we went through a visioning process as part of the general plan update. We presented this to council and got that approved, had input from the Public and Planning Commission as well. And so this is kind of the lens in which we view things. So again, whether they're rose colored or teal colored is really set by you. And this is essentially the color that you've decided on. And that's okay. It gives us a better opportunity in the planning realm to understand what your priorities are and to recommend programming that's focused on achieving this 2044 vision. In addition to this vision, there were a couple of guiding principles that you guys approved as well. There are 7 total. This is very small, but I can run through it. Again, a lot of it is focusing on creating healthy and safe community, a clean community, balancing fiscal responsibility, without limiting opportunities for individuals and business success, removing barriers to providing healthy, sustainable, and local food through agriculture at the household and large scale level, exploring the identity and cultural heritage of the city and the events around it. Creating flexible regulation and programs was something that was very strongly suggested by members of the public, having something that's easy to read, easy to use. And finally, developing, maintaining exceptional recreation options, as well as having state-of-the-art healthcare options. If you'll remember, health was a very strong focus of nearly every demographic group that we had participate in this section, including the school-age children. So with that, the general plan land use and community character element can kind of be summarized as your physical document that is part of your physical development of your community. So it asks the question of you, what kinds of development are allowed? What kinds of development are not? Where can those developments go that are appropriate, for property situations, performance, or even, if you want certain things in certain places, how intense can that development be? Do you want 12-story buildings, 4-story buildings? Do you want several buildings on one property or one large lot kept vacant? That is all addressed in this document. And again, that document is looking to achieve a 20-year goal. And so finally, we look at how will this element ensure development grows in a way that meets the vision as well as benefiting the community. So these are all of those questions that we're trying to answer with this. And so we'll move into some of our recommendations based on your guiding principles and your vision. So we'll start with cultural heritage. And so this was a big thing for a lot of people within the city of Wairika. And so some of the ways that we will see that through the land use element, I'm not going to keep saying community character because it's a lot to say. So identifying these historically significant places and preserving them. So that includes natural sites, that includes indigenous sites, that includes our historic downtown, as well as other historic event locations within the city. It's creating land use designations that respect the historic pattern of the city itself. We've gone through a number of different patterns of expansion throughout the years with the gold rush, as well as the advent of the automobile and the creation of Interstate 5 through the city. Those all have influence on your land use patterns. And so we want to respect that moving forward and kind of highlight those as assets rather than just things that exist within the city. We're establishing design criteria that we'll talk about in the design standards that reflect your local architectural traditions, designating spaces for cultural museums as well as interactive spaces. So if you think about the park that we have on Minor Street across from the Carnegie Library, having those types of assets within the community that are maintained as well as done in a way that really brings an educational and cultural factor to the city, makes it much more engaging for tourists as well as residents. And then recognizing the importance of landscape and view sheds as part of this as well. Although not a strong interest of people did state that the surrounding landscape is a defining factor of the identity of the city of Wairika. So we do want to respect that as we recommend design standards and land use patterns. So one of the other very important things is supporting social connections. And so as we move forward with the land use element, some of our recommendations are to enhance neighborhoods and ensure everyone has access to outdoor civic spaces or recreation spaces, and that those are high quality community spaces, making sure we have a network of those that people can leave their home and really experience the city in a very supportive way. Second is a mixed use designation or development, which ensures that residential, commercial, and recreational features create a very interactive neighborhood. So one of the reasons why we're recommending this type of change is that these types of neighborhoods, which is kind of more your historic downtown, really solicit very impromptu connections with people. So you see people passing on the street saying hi, and you end up having these kind of, discussions with people, and that is what a lot of people resonate with in terms of like the rural community. You really like to walk down the street in the morning and say hi to the person who passes you and feel safe doing that. And so these types of neighborhoods, having residential above commercial spaces, which is again, you know, what your traditional downtown Minor Street looks like, expanding that along Highway 3 and having some more of that mixed use development will hopefully create more of that neighborhood feel, as opposed to segregating people out into different land uses. So that's something that we're moving forward through the documents that you'll see with the land use element or the zoning code as well. And finally, designating and developing properties for social activities. So ensuring that you have ample places to put events, farmers market, some of these more kind of pop-up temporary events that really increase the amount of social interaction that we all have. And so a lot of these social engagement aspects are really coming from school-age children. And I think you see that with a lot of what happened with COVID, having people secluded. It did have an impact on the mental well-being of children, generally speaking. And when we were engaging Jackson Street School, the Seventh-day Adventist school as well, a lot of the kids really wanted more of these kind of communal spaces within the city, which actually, if you look back into the historic land pattern of when we became the county seat, our civic building and our civic spaces became very big focal points. And so not a lot of cities in Siskiyou County have as many public and social spaces as the city of Wairika does. And so this is really looking at supporting that, continuing it into new development, and enhancing what we have now. And that's a really important piece. And then building building resilience and self-sufficiency. A lot of people want to do it themselves, and we respect that. And you can incorporate that into a general plan and zoning code, which I'm very excited to do. So this is diversifying the city's economic base, not relying on just government jobs or just retail jobs, but it's ensuring a diverse portfolio of types of jobs so that as people grow, they can take an intro level job, then they can work their way up and work throughout the city without ever having to leave the city. And so having appropriate business areas and different scales of businesses will hopefully give us that ability to allow people to stay within the community if they so choose. So part of this building resilience and self-sufficiency is building our opportunity for agriculture. You do not have a lot of agriculture within the city of Wairika, but yet a lot of people identify with agriculture and farming. And so one of the things we want to do is preserving that agricultural heritage by allowing different scales of agriculture within the city that are appropriate. So we're not talking about allowing farms in single family neighborhoods, but we are talking about how do we release some of our development standards to allow people to have home gardens, to be able to do that in their front yard or in their side setbacks. So right now we have a very strict code that does not allow that, but allowing people those opportunities of taking control of their own food production, thus increasing their food security. But this would also look at, you know, not just personal scale, but also small scale farming operations where it is more appropriate in the outlying areas of the city. So another one is planning for sufficient housing options. We've talked a lot about this in the housing element. We talk about housing a lot. And so building self-reliance and self-sufficiency is also having access to affordable, safe housing. And it's also having housing choices and having choices for people who would like to have them. And you have a very, very low vacancy rate currently. You're still sitting at about 1% vacancy. We do want to get that up to around 10 to 15%. To put that in perspective, the city of Dunsmuir's vacancy is 37%. So again, very different issues between those two cities. So we have not enough housing stock in different areas. And that's something we need to improve to allow people to access that for us. Again, staying on, you know, building resiliency and self-sufficiency for people. We're identifying locations for essential services, which we're always doing. Again, healthcare, education, emergency response, integrating natural resource considerations to ensure long-term sustainability, as well as reducing natural hazards within the area. We do understand that mining was the heritage of the area. It's not necessarily a large economic driver anymore, but we do have timber production. We do have other ways of potentially developing energy using the land resources that we have available to us. And so those will be included in the natural resources section of the land use element, as well as your conservation element that will come at another time. So the final thing for this part to further your guidelines is designating appropriate areas for infrastructure that supports community self-reliance, such as household and local energy production. If you'll remember from the visioning, energy was the next biggest thing besides healthcare that people were really interested in, especially kids. which is a really fascinating thing for me to experience because energy production and supply chain tends to be a pretty complex topic. But when we did go to Wairika High School, that was something that they talked about was fuel production. It was looking at energy production. And then as we all know, with the current Pacific Power increases in bills, energy is going to get more expensive. We don't see it decreasing typically in price. And so we want to increase people's self-reliance and self-resiliency by giving them the opportunity to produce their own power and the community's power as well. So going through, we have some proposed land use designations. We kept it very simple for the land use element. So we're looking at resource management and environment, economic centers, community neighborhoods, civic health and cultural centers, and public facilities. And so the first one is our resource management and environment. So there are a lot of statutory requirements to have this type of land use designation, specifically timber and mineral extraction. So these areas would promote that resource efficiency. So one of the things that is within the land use element right now is that we're not advocating against any type of resource extraction. What we are advocating for is for proper management of those resources. So again, we're not discounting timber, we're not discounting mineral extraction. We are leaving the door open for that right now because that was seen as an economic diversity piece as well as a cultural heritage piece. That being said, logging operations, when managed efficiently, actually can lead to better wildfire resilience. They can lead to sustainable resources that we can use for future building or future production for exporting to other areas. And so logging can be a very good thing economically as well as environmentally if done in a manageable way. Canada has some great timber management practices. It's doable. This is also to increase access to outdoor spaces that are natural. So again, think Greenhorn Reservoir, trying to have these more natural state spaces. Some people prefer very manicured recreation spaces, which we will talk about in another land use designation, but allowing for that diversity in recreation was really important for members of the public going through the visioning. So again, also looking at our long-term resilience, looking at management of these natural resources to ensure that they're not going to be a detriment to the community. Again, managing for hazard mitigation, which we'll talk about at our next city council meeting and get into that piece of it. Economic centers is essentially how it sounds. This is looking at where most of your jobs are located. So this is going to be designating a variety of different areas for different types of economic centers. So you see here, we're going to be focusing on your traditional downtown, making sure that outskirts of the city of Wairika complement that downtown and don't detract from it. So one of the things we always have to balance in economic development with land use is we want the newest best thing like a Trader Joe's or a Lowe's, but we don't want it to put your ma and pa Ace Hardware out of business. And so we want to make sure as we do this, we're balancing those economic centers, starting with your traditional downtown and what you have right now. We're looking at agricultural zones. Again, these would be in the outskirts of the city that are closer to county land, looking for opportunities for that. You do actually have a meat quartering facility over on Philippi Lane that would be part of this agricultural enterprise zone. So we're not just talking about farming, but we're also talking about these agriculture adjacent industries. And one of the things we also talk about within the land use element is our regional connection with the rest of Siskiyou County and other cities. As a small jurisdiction, it's incredibly important to look at these regional kind of partnerships to make sure that we're complementing them and not competing against them. And so since we do have quite a bit of ranching within Siskiyou County, it's very important that we as a city on Interstate 5 provide industrial or commercial zoning to allow for complementary quartering, processing, and other types of uses for those agricultural uses in the county. So we're never going to really have multi-acre ranches within city limits, but we can provide economic opportunity and connection to them to be able to process that. And that would benefit both the county and the city to do those types of zones. So flexible mixed use again, one of the other things to mention about this is that having some flexible uses where you have smaller kind of your ma and pa type store, your hobby stores, they really benefit by being very close to residential areas. So being able to walk to go get yarn from a store is really going to add to not only your economic base, but it's going to add to the lifestyle of that individual who's walking to those very accessible shops. And so these are shops that we're looking at very small scale. Development is not going to be very intense on these types of things, but making sure they're all complementary when we do that. Finally, we're looking at resource-based businesses, as I've discussed, and then cottage industry businesses. So one of the things within the zoning code is our home occupation permits. So those will get a facelift. They have not had a good facelift in quite a long time. But we want to ensure that when we're doing cottage industry-based zoning, allowing people to do home-based businesses, that those businesses complement the neighborhoods that they're in and do not detract from those neighborhoods. So we want to leave that door open, but we also want to acknowledge that, you know, some of your neighborhoods, it may not be as appropriate for certain types of home uses. So again, looking at small scale manufacturing as well, that's a really big thing. You know, you think of Etsy and people making jewelry or people making different kinds of scarves or outerwear. Those would be supported within this as well. And finally, workforce development centers acknowledging College of the Siskiyous and their space within our city and making sure that as we're building these businesses, we have people who are able to work for them and people who are trained up to do that. Finally, we have your community neighborhood. We call it community neighborhood and not residential because it has other things listed into it, especially your civic plazas or parks or different amenities such as those, trails. And then this is mainly going to be your residential type of land use designation. And then that is also focusing on your housing options that come out of your housing element. And so really what we're focusing on is offering housing choices in community neighborhoods that are built for everyone. So we're looking at all ages. We're looking at people who are above 65. We're looking at people below 5. And we're looking at what types of features can we put into the neighborhood that gets people out, gets people walking, which is a healthier lifestyle, which again goes back to the guiding principle of health and state-of-the-art health care. And so again, also respecting that rural character, understanding that people will want larger lots and live on the outskirts of the city and have kind of a quasi-country living aspect that will also be accommodated in this community neighborhood. So going back to it, we talk about mixed use and we talk about integrating some commercial uses. Those would not be integrated into areas that would be considered commercial neighborhood or community neighborhood. Those would be focused more on your economic centers. Those would be closer to Highway 3. So community neighborhood as a whole would rely heavily upon your residential and your parks and open space types uses. So finally, we have civic, health, and cultural centers. This designation recognizes the interconnectivity of community well-being. Civic centers, recreation centers, your new Fairchild emergency room is up here. Your proposed Ringy Pool design is up here. And your educational services would be under this type of land use designation. So making sure that there are pieces of this land use designation throughout your community to allow for kind of those bigger centers that people can get to, you know, and not have to drive all the way over to the other side of the freeway. So that was one of the concerns that came up with the aquatic center proposal. For those of you who are here for that, the aquatic center was on the other side of Interstate 5. And one of the big concerns we heard from people who were against that project was it's very difficult to have children bike and walk over to the east side of Interstate 5. It's just not built for that right now. And so one of the things we wanted to recognize is that we can have multiple centers of activities. So we have the YMCA on the east side that's servicing the east side of the city, trying to make sure that we're balancing those centers throughout our community to give everybody an ample chance of recreating, connecting with each other, and having access to these really great community building pieces. Public facilities is the last one and the most boring. This is essentially here. This is your city services, infrastructure services. This is also a statutory requirement within general plans because your utilities are talked about in your circulation element, which we have taken out, and you have your own public facilities and utilities element. So you have land uses for that. And essentially, nobody wants to live next to a wastewater plant. If you do, you're a fascinating person. I would like to understand your psychology, but it's making sure that we are not locating inappropriate uses next to other inappropriate uses. So those are generally the top level stuff that we're thinking about. And again, going back to it, we're giving you kind of the 55% plan. So this is most of the direction that we've taken so far. We want to make sure this is still the direction you want to go. And we want to make sure that we're planning for the right things. And so this is the opportunity for public comment. And I'm not sure if you want council discussion after public comment or if you want council discussion at the end of the presentation.
I think we'll hold off on on council discussion until the very end.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'll step off to the side for you to take public comment on this aspect.
So I will open it up for public input at this time.
I'd like to know a couple things that I'm not quite understanding. All this mixing of things so people can walk in their neighborhoods. Don't we already have that in Wairika? I can walk in my neighborhood and I can walk all over Wairika. If I, there are some people who can't because of disabilities, but I'm hoping this is not going to a thing where there's going to be putting multifamily homes in my single family neighborhood. I know there's been a move in many areas to get rid of single family neighborhoods. And I hope that's not where this is going. And also the thing about the cottage industries and somebody having a business and next to the residential, I hope that that can be, if that's what is decided. I don't know, there weren't any examples of what a cottage industry would be that somebody would put in a residential area, but I think that there could be things that were noisy and I wouldn't want it next to me. But it's very open right now and there's not much clarity about what all this means. And I'm just going by a lot of things that we talked about when we were doing the housing thing. There's so much of it that I was opposed to because it's, again, the single family neighborhoods. And I think that's very important. To me, Wairika is a great place for community. When I walk downtown, I say hello to everybody I pass, even if I know them or not. I mean, I think we already do that. And when I'm at Greenhorn, people do that. So I'm anxious to hear all the details before we decide on this, especially how the zoning is going to change, because I like the zoning that I have right now.
Is there any other public input at this time?
Yeah, and I can address that question. It's a very easy one. As I stated in the presentation, the community neighborhood, so going back to it, is very focused on really just promoting healthy lifestyles through integration of parks and recreation and open space, and then really focusing on housing options for people. As I talked about before, and we'll talk a little bit more when Bonique gets to the zoning code portion of this, we're really focusing on economic centers having a mixed use to them, including the residential in the economic centers land use designation. So going back to it, the land use element is not advocating for high density residential in the community neighborhood designation. So we've already accommodated that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. Again, my name is Bonique Emerson. I'm a consultant planner with Precision Civil Engineering, and we've been working on the city's zoning code along with 2 other titles within the municipal code, which I'll touch on as I go through this presentation. So first off, I wanted to start with just describing what a zoning code is. So one of the key points is that it's an implementation document and it implements the general plan. So you establish all of these policies, you're changing policies within the general plan. We'll take that general plan, and will implement a lot of the policies in the zoning ordinance. The zoning code is a legal framework and it regulates land use and development. So anytime you want to develop property, you have to go to the zoning ordinance, look up what your zoning is. Every parcel of land has a zoning or zone district, and within the municipal code, every zone district has rules and regulations. It divides the city into zoning districts, residential, commercial, industrial, mixed use, etc. And as I mentioned before, each district has its own rules for allowed uses. So what types of uses are permitted in that zone district, building height, setbacks, landscaping that's required, parking, etc. And it ensures orderly growth. So also protects public health and safety. So that's the purpose of a zoning code. So why do we need to update the zoning code? So first of all, to ensure consistency with the general plan. So since the city is undergoing a general plan update, updating the zoning ordinance or zoning code is essential to maintain that consistency. And also to maintain consistency with state law. A lot has changed in the past 20 years. Also, it's important to modernize outdated provisions. So there's land uses and planning, change over time. For example, I don't know if anyone remembers, what were those things called? Internet cafes. Does anybody remember internet cafes? They were a big thing 20 years ago. It was when I was first a planner. Now I talk to young planners, they're like, what is that? I've never heard of that. So things change over time. And so it's really important to stay up to date and modernize codes. Also, it's important to streamline the permitting process. So one of the things we're doing here is making sure that all of the processes are streamlined and there's clear discussion on the administration, so how a project goes through the process. Also, we're going to be promoting housing production and economic development. So that's a key for one of the reasons why you want to update your zoning ordinance as well. And finally, to enhance clarity, usability, and enforcement. So just a little bit of an overview. So we have conducted audits of Title 11, Title 15, and Title 16 of the Wairika Municipal Code. And those sections are building and construction, subdivisions, and zoning. So those are the three titles that we are focused on. And we are doing a major cleanup and modernization of the building and construction and subdivision sections, but the main focus is really the zoning code or the zoning ordinance. So that's what I'm going to be talking about primarily, but also if you have we're taking public input and comment on all three of those titles within the municipal code. So in terms of the zoning ordinance, it's going to be organized into 6 parts. It includes new formatting, user-friendly language, and updated standards. It reorganizes existing regulations and introduces modern zoning practices, as I mentioned before. And it will incorporate feedback from staff, council, and the community. Along with the audits, we've created outlines, which we will eventually, those outlines are we're working through those outlines right now, and those will turn into the actual formal code. We're still very early in the process. So again, we've done audits, we've done an outline of the overall code sections. We're working on through the uses permitted in every zone district. We're updating those and the definitions. So we've kind of gone through and modernized a lot of the definitions. But again, we're still very early in the process. So this is the structure of the new zoning code. There will be 6 parts. So general provision. So this section goes through the authority, the structure of the document, and the purpose of the document. The base and overlay districts. This is kind of the heart of the zoning ordinance. It'll be in table format, which I'll show you in a few slides from now. It'll go through, list every zone, and talk about the uses permitted, the density and massing standards, which include height, setbacks, etc. The next section, part 3, is regulations applying to some or all districts. These are things like fencing, lighting, parking, and also very specific use types that require special regulations. Part 4 is the administration. So this is this outlines the different planning permit types. For example, site plan reviews, conditional use permits. So it goes through all of those and the requirements for those types of permits. Part 5 will be the housing section. That'll go through incentives, density bonus, and go through specific housing types like accessory dwelling units and single room occupancy type uses. Finally, part 6 goes through all of the definitions. So this is primarily land use definitions within the zoning ordinance. So some highlights from key sections. So as I mentioned before, there will be new use tables for each district, updated development standards, the RPO and CPO, which are residential professional office. So these are the 2 office districts within the city are being amended to allow for more housing. There will include expanded housing options, as I mentioned before, ADUs, SROs, that's single room occupancy, farm worker housing, and tiny homes. A lot of these additions are coming directly from the programs that are called out in your housing element. So they're things that are mandated by the housing element, and we're implementing them through this zoning code update. Improved procedures for permits and appeals, and then new landscaping, parking, and site design standards. So this, the next 2 slides kind of highlight the changes, one of the changes that we're making to the zoning ordinance. So as you can see, this is the current code. So it lists the following uses are permitted, and it's a list type. Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted to make sure that we talked about this. This is your actual code. It's very hard to implement because one of the things you'll notice, and it is very small here, but I will read it for you. All uses permitted in C2 zone district without a conditional use permit. This happens a lot in your commercial zoning, but it's also in your residential zoning where essentially staff and members of the public who want to know what can I do in my commercial highway zone now have to look up several different code sections because they essentially rush and doll into each other. I did not bring up the example of neighborhood commercial, which has no uses, which is very strange because essentially that's what a zoning code does is identify uses. But I wanted to really highlight one of the issues that we're solving with this update. It's not only going to be easier for the general public, but also for staff to implement.
So yes, and as a planner who formerly worked at a counter for many years, and when I first started, the zoning ordinance that I used was this type of zoning ordinance, and you're flipping back and forth, going all over the place to try and figure something out. So that's as opposed to this example here, which lists zone districts and uses in a nice table format. And you could see, is it permitted? Is it not permitted? Is it permitted by right or with a conditional use permit? And are there special regulations? So all of that is very clear, and it's very easy to go to your zoning, go down, look for the use, and figure out, is it permitted? And if it is, what are the requirements? So that's a huge change that's coming with this zoning ordinance update. So just some highlights from key sections. So some of the specific changes will be the residential agriculture will include more ag, as you mentioned before, Juliana mentioned before. Did you want to talk through this, Juliana?
Yeah. Excited about this one. So this is directly from your land use element and your visioning process. So surprisingly, your residential ag zone does not really have any ag. So we did add a lot more agriculture to this. Your agriculture zone are your larger lots on the outskirts of town. They do not require a lot of improvements to operate them. They're kind of essentially a county interface zone. But we felt with the food system production piece that's in your vision and guiding principles, we should probably put agriculture and residential agriculture. Low density residential, I really wanted to call this out because this also addresses the comment we got earlier. Low residential will not change outside of state mandates. So we are going to be reducing some of the setbacks and making them more flexible like all of the other regulations that we have available, but we are not touching any of your low density residential zoning. So again, besides state mandates. So state does require us to allow certain types of new housing within those areas, and those are called out in the housing element. And again, those are state mandated, but we have not touched it other than that aspect. Finally, the mixed use combines that residential professional office and commercial professional office, which essentially are already mixed use zones. So really what this does is it consolidates them into one zone because frankly, they're not that different. It's really difficult, honestly, as a practitioner to be able to determine the difference between the two of them. But they will just be combined into one mixed use zone. And so if you do take a look at the city's current zoning code map, you'll see exactly where those mixed use areas will be. Most likely that map is not going to change much. And so most of those RPO, CPO areas are frankly kind of this neighborhood right here between Oregon and Highway 3. And then finally, your medium and high density residential will have some higher densities, but they will mainly match your historic densities. So what we did was take a look at the actual satellite imagery of your historic downtown, and we calculated the number of units per acre using your historic downtown, and those will inform the densities within medium and high density residential. And so again, we did not touch low density residential. We are leaving it as is with a couple of minor updates to meet state mandates, but medium and high density residential, which are strictly really along Foothill, Fairlane is mainly industrial, but Foothill and Highway 3 in Oregon.
So some additional highlights from what we're working on right now is we're working on clear and more modern definitions, as I mentioned before. And one of the keys to point out again is that we're building from the existing code. So we're not starting from scratch. So it's not a huge shift. It's a lot of, again, consistency with the general plan and complying with the state and modernization. Housing element implementation, such as, so the following are state mandated items, accessory dwelling unit updates, by right housing and multifamily zone districts, and adding supportive and transitional housing type uses in certain districts and allowing those uses in some cases to be by right or what is permitted, how other residential uses are permitted in that same zone district. So that concludes this portion. Now we're open for a public comment.
I'll open it up for public input now. We'll move on to design standards.
Okay. So design standards. So design standards or community character. So why do we need design standards? So these will reinforce Wairika's small town character, ensure future development aligns with community expectations. Again, those community expectations are coming from the general plan and also some additional public input that I'll talk about in a later slide. And they'll help preserve and celebrate local identity. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that we are creating objective design standards. So this is one of the requirements that comes from the housing element as well. And what are objective design standards? So objective design standards, also known as ODS, provide a clear set of design requirements for new development that are measurable and definitive, as opposed to subjective guidelines that require interpretation. So one of the things to note is that objective design standards doesn't mean that a developer can do what they want. It means that you set these very clear requirements that are objective. And as long as they meet those requirements, they can move forward with their development. So, and I have some differences between guidelines, which is pretty typical or what was done previously in a lot of jurisdictions, versus objective standards. So guidelines are subjective. They have preferences, opinions, and there's a lot of interpretation that goes into guidelines. Whereas objective standards are objective, they're facts, they're verified, and you can make a clear decision. Guidelines are recommendations. They're not as enforceable, whereas objective standards are requirements and very enforceable. It's very black and white. Do you meet it or don't you meet the requirement? Guidelines are open to interpretation and they're difficult to measure and verify, whereas objective standards are measurable and verifiable, and they take the guesswork out of for staff. So it's easier for staff to review a project and determine if it's complies with the requirements or not. And guidelines typically use words like should or may, whereas standards use language like shall, must, or is required to. So some of the elements of objective design standards include building design along with site elements. So for building design, that's massing and articulation, roof design, building details and materials, and very specific architectural elements. So those types of elements that make up a particular architectural style. Some site elements that are regulated under objective design standards are landscaping, parking location and design, outdoor lighting, and building equipment and service areas. So I did want to mention that these standards are being written to take into account public comment. So we had a survey that was open to the community from February 24th through April 6th that asked a lot of questions to get input on what the community liked or didn't like. We had a total of 62 respondents. 86% of the respondents live within the city, 44% work here, and 7% visit occasionally. So it was a good proportion of the respondents live here in the city. And some of the key takeaways from the community survey is that there's a strong support for preserving historic character. There's a preference for traditional small town architecture. There's a desire to avoid cookie cutter subdivisions. And there was an emphasis on the importance of walkable, attractive neighborhoods. So again, as I mentioned before, this survey input is directly shaping the structure and content of the city's new design guidelines. So a little bit more on this input. So this is just a summary of some of the comments that were received. So these quotes are received directly from individuals who responded in the open-ended section of the survey. So retain Wairika's historical and Victorian architecture, avoid generic in-tract home style development, encourage buildings with character, porches, variation, and preserve our historic Main Street. And again, these themes will inform the objective design standards. So some of the historic architectural styles to be highlighted: Victorian, Craftsman bungalow, Italianate, Western false front, colonial revival, and farmhouse ranch style. And these styles will form the basis of these new design standards. So what will this document look like? So right now, the plan is for this to be a standalone document that'll be for easy reference, but it will be formally incorporated by reference in the zoning code. So that way it can be implemented. And it will provide objective, enforceable design criteria as mentioned before. And the document will include photo examples, illustrative diagrams, and sample elevations, and call out do's and don'ts. And so this is just an example of what it could look like. So this is a page from a document we prepared for the city of San Clemente. And one thing to note is we did take the approach of the written words that are there on the left are also in the zoning ordinance. And they wanted to do it that way because they preferred not to have so many images in their zoning ordinance. But we wanted to make sure that we provided a visual guide to the community. So what we did is we took the requirements that were called out in the zoning ordinance and created a handout or a booklet for the public that goes through the requirements and then visualizes and calls out what's being discussed there on the left-hand side. So this is building design standards. And this is an example of architectural design elements. So just to give you an idea of what these could look like when they're completed. So timeline and next steps, and this is for the Title 11, 15, 16, and the objective design standards. So right now we're gathering public input and drafting the documents. We're hoping in the winter this year into spring, we're going to be drafting code chapters to be released out for public review, shooting for spring of 2026 for planning commission hearing and summer of 2026 for city council adoption. And community input is ongoing and feedback is welcome. And this next slide just outlines how you can participate. So if you go to the city's website and go to the, sorry, I kind of outlined these things. You can, you all know how to participate, share your priorities for future growth, identify challenges, especially if there's challenges that you've encountered in trying to open a new business or build an addition to your home. Those are the kinds of things that can only be improved by changing the zoning ordinance. So we also ask to attend future workshops and hearings, and that will be posted on the city's website. It's here. If you scroll down on the planning page, we'll put information on when future hearings are occurring. And then if you want to submit comments, I put Juliana's email there.
I just wanted to let everyone know, we also will be hosting a farmer's market booth at every farmer's market. So Sarah Chaffee, our resiliency planner, is really heading that up. But we will have some outreach related to the general plan at those tables, probably not this Friday, but we will in the future. The other thing to note really quick that we didn't call out for the design standards, this would not apply to everyone. So this does not apply to single family homeowners. This does not apply typically to duplexes, triplexes. So these types of standards would apply to commercial development, large scale commercial and large scale residential projects only. So that was something that I thought of while you were talking, is I'm like, how do we use this? So these design standards would be required for large scale developments within the city. So again, we're not telling people what kind of house they can build on their single family lot or duplexes or anything like that. It would usually be much larger scale development. A really good example is the Payne Lane proposed project that we're working on right now. That is a number of apartment buildings. So that would apply to this type of standard. So I just wanted to clarify how we would use that.
Thank you so much. I'll open it up for public input on design standards. It's a lot of information to absorb. So I'm actually going to bring it back to council at this point in time for just general discussion. Again, our assistant city manager is looking for just some general direction if the council likes the direction that this is going at this point in time. We certainly can tell her that, as well as anything that really concerns you.
If you have any questions.
Or if you have any questions. So I'm going to open it up to council. Mr. McCoy?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank both of our city managers, past and present, yourself and staff that you've worked with for guiding this along. This general plan has been a long time. I've been watching it unfold now for probably a couple of years, and I appreciate all the input that people are getting to have. And it is something that is important to help us to give guidance to people who want to build here. I appreciate when we talked about home-based businesses, that there are two things people don't know. And I didn't think about it within the city, and that is that if you would like to have a home-based business, you need to have a permit for that home-based business through the city, because you are taking advantage of being in the city and being able to sell things. But We have bakeries that are home-based in the city. I have a bookseller that is one door across from me, and I never hear a peep. It's quiet as can be. You wouldn't know what's going on there. And that bookseller ships all over the United States, and they ship very, very rare books because once I found out about them, I have bought several books from them, but they sell first editions as well. We have jewelry. We have doll sellers. I know a doll seller on Third Street. I can't believe what this person has told me over the last 7 years they have sold dolls and doll parts. And then we just have general parts sellers for whether it's an old Harley parts or old car parts or old parts for GI Joes or whatever. And so and you just don't know who's living next door to you. You don't know what they're doing, but it is definitely fascinating. And I appreciate the fact that you are trying to protect that and to protect us in our neighborhoods. I noticed I appreciate the highlights of cultural heritage and identity, and I appreciate that because I know that we've talked about this several times before in council when you have taken, your department's taken comments from people and input. The other thing is supporting the social engagement, getting not only from the adult public specifically, but from YHS students, JSS students, and SDA students. So you could get what those of us who are, I will just say, are more mature, those of us who might think differently than a 8th grader or a senior in high school or a 5th grader, you've gotten our ideas and taken our identity, and then you have also melded it with other people who are maybe not quite as mature as I might be. And I use maturity to mean age, not anything else. The whole thing with diversifying the city's economic base, again, something that the council's asked for, something that public has asked for. When people chat with me, they go, why can't we get this? Why can't we do that? The identification of locations for things, designating appropriate areas for infrastructure is wonderful. The civic, health, and cultural centers and the community neighborhood. Although, yeah, we do walk up and down, and I like Miss Osborne say, "Oh, how you doing?" Blah 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 blah. But it's nice to know that we want to continue that, and that the city sees that, and that the council hopefully will follow along with that. The language within the zoning terms is important for people. I know been working on a project now for about 18 months. Very helpful to have that. Also, the mandates from the housing elements. People tend to think that that's something that we as a city are putting together. We're not. That's something that comes down to us, and we just have to make sure that builders and businesses within the city understand it, as well as the use permitting. But I think you did a wonderful job. I look back and look at what you put together with what we want, and I say we as a community wanted, what the respondents said, the being self-supportive, being able to be free of being able to reduce natural hazards and wildfire and that sort of thing. And I do want to commend you, and I want to thank you for all the hard work you've done. I know there's a lot more to do, but I appreciate it so far.
I think just through the chair, I think we're at 207 pages for the zoning code. Yeah. And we're not done. So.
It just informs where we're going.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Because you're getting from us, well, we want A, B, and C. And you're not telling us, well, you're not going to get it. You're going to get D, E, and F. You're saying, okay, you want A, B, and C. That's what we see. We appreciate that. And so thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis?
Well, I thought the process that you used by stepping into the housing element that we developed along with the previous council, and then the survey, I think that was really a good stroke to Mrs. Casey. I appreciate that. And I think you've got a good program going. Keep it up.
Thank you. Councilmember Middleton?
Thank you.
Just a couple of comments is that as a real estate professional and broker is a lot of my colleagues and people in the business and working with clients get very frustrated when you have a piece of property and it's like, what can you use this for? And as you're saying, they come in and then you have to turn 9 pages to figure out what a client can use that property for. So it's going to be very helpful for real estate professionals in this town to be able to,
Build them a table if they use it.
yes,
Don't do that.
and just actually to have it at their fingertips. So it's not, so it's right there as they attach it to whatever the MLS or whatever, so they know that usage of they can use that property for. So I'm very excited about that. I think everything looks great. I think as a fourth generation and born and raised in Wairika, that Wairika can preserve its charm, not grow big, but also make the changes necessary to evolve as time goes on and in the future, and to set up a nice town for the future of our children and the people who are coming behind us, and even for the next city council. If you haven't gone to Central Point, look at what they have done with their downtown, how they've evolved, how they've changed it, and how that city is booming. And they did a whole design standard and redid that whole downtown area. So if you haven't visited Central Point in a while, it's worth a trip to go visit Central Point, Oregon, and see what actually one of our locals who does live in our community is a city manager and has brought that city to where it is today. So, what a great town he has built in the downtown area. And I think where we could get there, and it's just supporting it, and it's having the tools in place and the plan that you have provided us and the council and the city managers, and the vision that has come the last few years since I've sat here to move us forward. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Thank you. Councilmember Claire?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is laid out really well and it's informative, but not, I mean, it's a lot of information, but it's broke down really nicely. So I appreciate all that, and I agree with everything everybody said so far. And I also really like how you guys emphasized growth, but while maintaining the feel of Wairika, because that's really important to utilize what we have, I feel, but maintaining the small town feel of Wairika is what makes it special, in my opinion, and how you're gonna find a way to do both. But did a great job. It's well done. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I echo all the comments of my fellow council members. I think you've just done a great job with this document. It's a lot of information to absorb. And I am personally most excited about design standards. As you know, we've had several conversations about that. Design standards, with the idea of really keeping Wairika's charm and character just very unique for Wairika. So I appreciate all of the work that's gone into this. And as you've said, this is not the end. This is just one more step in the process. So the community will have plenty of opportunity to provide input at the farmers markets, as well as other ways. And so I just want to commend you for a job well done.
Thank you.
And I really like the direction this is going.
Thank you. All right. Thank you guys so much. So we'll move on to the city manager and staff reports.
We have a couple tonight. I'll start it off. Good evening, Council. John Elsnab, interim city manager. I just wanted to share a couple things for the council and the community. First one being the city of Wairika will be sponsoring a free rabies dog clinic with the help of Essex Veterinary Clinic. This will be on June 12th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Lower Greenhorn Park. It's a first come, first served basis. And probably by the end of the week, we'll have some content we can share on social media to help market the event. So that'll be coming on June 12th. And then I also wanted to share that the sheriff's office will be hosting a Wairika town hall on Thursday, June 24th at 6:30 p.m. at the community center. And this will be an opportunity to share information on public safety initiatives, priorities, as well as information on the upcoming fire season. And we'll have meeting info posted on local community boards and social media in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Alsab, did you have a time for that, the rabies clinic, did you say? On June
Rabies
12th?
Clinic will be between 5 and 7 p.m.
5 and 7 p.m. Thank you. I
Thank
did
you.
catch that. Thank you.
Chief Gilman.
Hello, Council, Chief Gilman. So I've just got our stats since the last time we talked. It's been about 4 weeks since the last time we talked. And Wairika's been extremely busy for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if the solar flares had something to do with it, but it's been crazy. So we had 1,531 calls for service. We took 131 cases. We arrested 61 people. 13 were for felonies. We had 6 DUIs. We made 221 traffic stops and issued 52 citations. The number one activity we had was traffic stops. So at least the guys are being very proactive out there. We've had, I think, 7 resisting arrests that were significant. One just an hour ago, unfortunately. We had a stabbing. We were able to save the guy. It was pretty dramatic. We had to put a tourniquet on him in the street. So we're working on that case. We had 2 patrol cars and a citizen's car, possibly all totaled from a drunk driver while we were on a traffic stop, and a couple injuries out of that, but everyone's doing okay. We had a few fires, and thank you, Jerry, for all his help. We were able to get on them, but we had a couple good fires. All of them, we have addressed the person. We issued a citation on one. Some were children, so we turned it over and let the children be handled that way, but we did investigate each one. So I just want to remind everyone, for Jerry, since he's not up tonight, that even though it's still technically fire season, Wairika is not the place to be burning right now. It's been scary. It's been a lot of fire calls. We had some commercial burglaries. They were all over Facebook, and people that follow our page through the city's website probably saw those. But we are investigating one. We've made arrests for 2 of them. So we're doing good on those. And it looks like that's about it, unless you have questions. I have a lot of the stats here broken down if you have questions on anything. Basically, for our homeless encounters, that's our 5th biggest topic. Everything before that is just traffic stops. So the most handled call in Wairika is the homeless. It's only a small portion of them. There's an old police saying that, you know, we deal with 90% of the public 10% of the time, and 10% of the public 90% of the time. It's the same with the unhoused community. There's, you know, 10% of them roughly that we deal with all the time. But our thefts come from that segment, and we had 34 thefts, 28 trespassings. It just goes on. It's been keeping us very busy, but I don't know why it got so busy all of a sudden. It's just been very busy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Chief Gilman?
So not necessarily with what you brought up, but as far as what if we had the option of providing a community service officer for us for here, even a part-time, would you see that as a beneficial opportunity, not only for dog issues, but for cars that are sitting too long on the sidewalk, tagging tires and stuff like that? That takes a lot of time for you guys to pull over and you know, to tow a car, to fill out the paperwork for all that. Is that something you think would be beneficial to look at maybe in the future, as far as for your department, to save you guys some time and while addressing some issues in town as well?
Yes, I strongly believe. City manager and I worked on this a couple of years ago. We've actually kind of looked at how we would make that work. We had, I believe it was 48 animal calls that we had to deal with. We've housed a mess of animals. We get a lot of what we call stale misdemeanors, you know what they are, but a stale misdemeanor is someone calls in, they came home, you know, from the weekend off, and they see their mailbox got vandalized or something. We spend a lot of time on those. Wairika is the small town atmosphere that you were talking about. Our patrolmen go out and deal with everything. If you call the police, we show up, which you don't get in most cities. But it is taxing on us with 1,500 calls plus for service. And we're short-staffed and we're about to get very short-staffed. It's going to be really bad for us here in 2 months. So yes, a CSO would help with all of those misdemeanors. Out of the 131 cases, probably 100 of them are stale misdemeanors, things that really there's no way to solve it, but we have to help people out and do our best. But that's something the CSO could handle. And the animal calls, they could definitely help with that. And then the parking downtown, we don't do parking enforcement anymore. It's been off since COVID and just never really took off again, but it'd be nice to see a parking enforcement start.
Thank you.
I just want to add, code enforcement's been dealing with vehicles and RVs. So if people do have vehicles that have been stalled out on their streets for a significant amount of time, or, you know, a lot of things blocking driveways, please report that to code enforcement. We are responding to those.
Thank you.
You betcha. Any other questions?
Chief, I know you're dealing with a lot of animals. I know you're dealing with a lot of animals because I see it
Mhm.
on Facebook and later we see them on internet. That's okay. How long do you keep an animal if it doesn't get adopted out or whatever else? How long do you typically try to keep it before you put it down?
So I'm kind of the philosophy of no kill place. I would rather not put an animal down. I love dogs. Lieutenant Dirkson's more in charge of our animals, so he could probably answer it better than me. But I believe the law allows for 3 days. We have some dogs, like the dogs we captured from Greenhorn that caused all the problems. We still have. It's been 3 weeks. We do everything we can to adopt them. We have a part-time kennel tech who basically her whole job is to adopt dogs out, and she does amazing. So we try, even though the 3 days, I believe, is our limit. If I'm wrong, please correct me. 5. So 5 days is our limit. We constantly extend that. We go well past that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 10, Mayor, Council Member reports, statements, and requests. And this is the time for members of the council to make brief announcements, reports, or request staff to report to the council on any matter at a subsequent meeting. Who would like to go first? Mr. McCoy.
This is just, this is, okay. I would like to, I appreciate that the public has brought up the idea of the 3 versus 5 minutes rule on the agenda for public comment. I know we do 3 minutes on every committee that we have. I know that the county does 3 minutes. I know that most of your major cities and some of your smaller cities do 3 minutes. And I know that Councilman Baker, now Mayor Baker, had this idea when she first came on, and I liked it, that we would go from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. So it would be nice to be able to have a discussion about that. You proposed it at one point in time when you first came on. You don't remember?
I do not remember
Yeah.
that.
We can, yeah, but I liked it. I had never thought about it. And I liked it when you said that, because again, one of the things in private sector, and I was in private sector for 20 years, we have what's called a, elevator pitch. And you get 30 seconds to 60 seconds to give your pitch to a financial person in order to get your point across and see if you can get them to loan 30 or 40 or $50,000. They don't want to hear any more than that. They want to hear what you're doing, the meat of it. And so I like the fact that it makes me a more succinct person when I have a 3-minute time rather than a 5-minute time. And it also allows more people to speak. And there are times when we have some very, very, we've had some, we've had, 20 people, 25 people lining up. So I just think that's something that we should maybe put on the agenda for, I don't know, maybe August or something. I know it's always slower in July and August, and we're not meeting one meeting in July. So I would like to see that. Let's see, I had a couple of things. I would like to also maybe talk about, and again, not now, maybe in August, talk about how we can start to push some of our local property owners and our absentee property owners of businesses to begin to try and lease their businesses and get some kind of business in there. Because we have a lot on Minor Street, on Broadway. We're going to have one more now with Rite Aid going out on the highway, and we have others there. And I think sometimes when you own a property, you kind of just get complacent and you go, well, you know what, and in the case of a Rite Aid or something like that, they have a 20 or 30-year lease. So whoever owns that building will get the money till the end of the lease. They don't cease paying. So, I think we need to get that on an agenda maybe for August at some time. So, I would also like this council to consider an urban campground. We need to get people moved off the hill. This council passed an ordinance to punish, the people who are unhoused. And we passed it without having any infrastructure to enforce it and without having anywhere for them to go. And I think it's time that we go ahead and look at how we're going to commit a piece of property and the resources in order to put in some kind of urban campground. I think our community deserves it. We have residents deserve it. The people that use Greenhorn Park deserve it. I just think so I'd like to see that, come on sometime, maybe in the summer again when it slows down a little bit. But I mean, we do need to look at that. It's in my opinion. So those are the 3 items I have, and I usually don't bring items during this time. I do want to thank Wairika Fire Department, YPD, watching the fires. We've had 2 fires in the city. We could very easily be just like Paradise, but we're not. And that's because of the foresight of this council, of your office, and of your departments and Jerry's department. So I want to thank you for that. I don't know if we missed this, but I saw Keith Cummings up here with Jerry, and then we didn't recognize him, but I want to say thank you to Keith Cummings. He's our new Wairika Volunteer Fire Department that we appointed tonight when we did the we appointed him tonight, and I want to thank him for it. Wairika Fire Department put on a great dinner on Saturday night. It was fabulous. I saw Councilman Davis and Councilman Baker there. I think they still had quite a few places open, but it was well attended, and I think they made some good money. The farmers market last Friday was good, although there were only 5 booths. The 5 booths that were there were good booths, and it was a lot of fun. So I want to thank the farmers market for that. And then one last question. This probably goes to you, sir. Will the DA, Mr. Andrus, will he be at the Wairika Town meeting with the sheriff, or will he be absent from that?
I would have to check.
Yeah, I would be nice to know if he's going to be there, because it makes a big difference, because nobody does, the police department, the sheriffs don't do anything without the DA's backing.
I'm pretty confident Sheriff LaRue will be there, but I can check on the DA.
That'd be, if you find out, maybe just send us an email or something like that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Don't mean to put you on the spot. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Didn't mean to take you by surprise. But I thought it was a good idea.
Councilmember Middleton?
Let's see. I think all of us were there to attend the what is it called? What did they rename it?
Siskiyou Village.
Siskiyou Villages. There's been a lot of different names out and about. So Siskiyou Villages, we all attended the ribbon cutting for that, and that's going to be a great facility for a house population and the units. I was very surprised how well set up they were. So what a great job. And one thing that struck me, and I know we deal with it, is the frustration of the time that it takes to get a project done. But it does pay off when you work together with, like I said, the partnership with City of Wairika and Sioux County. But as Dr. Clerk was speaking, she was recognizing how long it took. And when she mentioned working with Councilman Kaag, myself, and then recognized Mayor Baker when she was getting ready to speak, that's how long it took, because I was the mayor for 2.5 years and Dwayne was about 2 years. So we started work on that over 4 years ago, and it's finally nice to see it. But that's when people say, you need to get this done. You need to get this done. We work on something, but then it takes a very long time. So it's very frustrating on that end of government is to get something done and for it to take a long time. But when you work hard and you work together as a team, and a lot of things are possible. So it was nice to see it finally be in about the property. Yeah. 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 So long time. Um, let's see. Like I said, I did propose. I think it's coming for the council for the 3 minutes. It's nothing to punish citizens for speaking. It's to one thing I learned from a long-term supervisor is he told me I had a meeting with him. I'm not going to mention his name. Is they have 3 minutes there, 3 minutes in every city that I know of. 3 minutes in the count or the count throughout the county or less. Actually, one has two. Have two. 2 minutes, I believe, to speak. Is because he was telling me that as anything else goes, when you're up to grab our attention, getting to the point we have your attention, when you wander and you start talking, then you lose us. And I'm not saying we're not paying attention to you, but when you get up to the microphone and when you're up there and you're saying, no dogs in the park, we don't want this. This is what I'm seeing. When you're hammering us, that's what we're paying attention to. When it takes a long time, I'm not saying all, people check out, but it seems like just like a student or anything in class, you kind of like start getting overloaded. So that's the only reason I am recommending it come forward, as many of the councils throughout the county, our supervisors have, 3 minutes. Some have 2 minutes. We've been very generous at 5. So, and it has taken a long time with public speaking. I know the mayor has the right to, or the authority to reduce that comment, but I just wanted to have it brought up for discussion. So that's the reason I'm asked for it. Um, I will end with wishing all our citizens in Siskiyou County throughout a happy Pride Month of June and wish them all the best. And I know a lot of people, it's not an easy time for them. And not only in the LGBT community, but everybody right now is having a lot of hard times. So with that, I will end. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. The Fire Safe Council I attended their meeting. It's once a month. And the Klamath National Forest had a couple things there. Been doing some burning in, the Scott River and the Salmon River area. And a kind of a neat thing, $38 million for infrastructure in the McKinney Fire area. For roads, they're going to restore Collins Bolly Lookout. And so they're plunking quite a bit of money into restoration of the Klamath National Forest, of course. Indirectly, it affects the people that live there. So they're getting up and running for their firefighting in June and July. So, and CAL FIRE made a report that they're getting close to being complete with the Greenhorn project, and our Sarah Resilience Officer, Sarah Chaffee's involved in that, along with Mrs. Casey. And that'll be, they're going to be doing some burning there too, up in Greenhorn Park. I did attend the Chiefs dinner dance, and it was good. It was a good dinner. It was catered locally. That's another good thing. So, Chief, you did a nice job. And that, I think the last thing I have there is that the curtain burner that we've been using to burn our greens brush and stuff is shut down, and we all got that message the 31st. So they will reopen that when the fire danger drops down, probably next fall sometime. I attended the pallet shelter dedication, and I believe that Mr. McCoy and Mr. Middleton and Mr. Cake did a nice job on that, getting that property lined out. I kind of think that I heard that the original plan was to put a campground there, And then as it developed, it got to be better. And Mr. Middleton spoke about the pallet shelters. Guys, that was a whale of a project. I think that's going to benefit our homeless in the city of Wairika a lot. So thanks a lot. And then I believe the mayor and I attended a groundbreaking ceremony up at Fairchild Medical Clinic for their emergency new expansion. And I think I saw a shovel in the mayor's hand. So that was a good day. That was a good day. And I believe, Mayor Baker, I'm complete.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
John, do you have cooling shelter information?
Yes,
If I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I didn't write it down when you told me earlier.
no worries. I talked to the Siskiyou Resource Center and they are open right now. They said if someone needs to come in and use the center as a cooling shelter, that is available. I believe our contract starts in July, but they were supportive of if someone needed to use it now, they could. And that I believe that is open from 8 to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. But I can clarify those times and dates.
Right on. Thank you. The only thing is maybe we can look further into doing the CSO position, especially with the summer coming and with these guys losing bodies to other places, if we could free them up for actually doing patrol stuff and not having to deal with other stuff, whatever that entails for you guys, however you work together on it, that'd be nice just to look into it further as we can. The other thing is Prescribed Burn Association is up doing, they're gonna be doing the Greenhorn burn with CAL FIRE and everybody else. So they do take volunteers, I think. I'm able to do time. I'm gonna go up there and go help work the burn up there with them if I can. Other than that, I would have liked to have gone to a lot of the things everybody talked about. I plan on going to the dinner and the groundbreaking. Unfortunately, I had some family things that came up that prevented me from attending, but
On that, right, burn.
yes. Yep, the burn, if anybody starts tomorrow, Greenhorn, what acre, the 11? Is that the 11-acre one tomorrow or the smaller one, right? So they're starting that tomorrow and then the rest of the bigger ones. And I believe anybody can go to the Prescribed Burn Association. They have Nomex and tools and helmets and stuff like that. They won't put you in anything that's too dangerous if you don't have a lot of experience or any at all, but you can go volunteer to help work the burns if you feel like it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a busy couple of weeks. On May 27th, I toured the Siskiyou Village and it's pretty impressive. Although the little homes are very little. But I think it's a great addition to Wairika and to the county as well. On the 27th, I also attended the Call Your Information Center meeting. And we discussed the budget and their budget has been decimated. And I know that the city of Wairika last year chose to end funding for C2C. So on Friday when we meet, Mr. Elsnab, I'll be talking to you a little bit about that. And then on the 28th, with so many of you, I also attended the Siskiyou Village opening ceremony. And on the 31st, I represented the city at the groundbreaking ceremony for Fairchild Medical Center Emergency Room Expansion Project. And I had the opportunity to talk with the hospital administrator, Jonathan Andrus, who was a very, very complimentary towards the city and thanked us for all of the city's support. And they specifically mentioned our assistant city manager, Juliana Lucchesi, for her expertise and assistance in getting this project off the ground. And it's a pretty impressive project. It is going to more than double the size of the emergency room. It's going to bring lab services all together. So I believe, unless I am not remembering correctly, which is a possibility, I think they said they were going to have room for up to 25 emergency room patients. So it's a pretty impressive expansion. And then also on the 31st, I attended the firemen's dinner dance. It was a great dinner. And I have to get the recipe for the beans because my family has told me that I have to get that recipe. So thank you so much. And Mr. Elsnab, I appreciate you making arrangements for the rabies clinic. And I believe I would just want to make sure that I have this right. It's on June 12th at Lower Greenhorn Park from 5 to 7 p.m.
That is correct.
All right. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming.